Welcome back everyone, this is Go for SC2 Monday. It's a quarterfinal, a best of 3, and we're in the ace game. Spawning up to the north, the purple Terran player, representing ESC, the turtle Terran himself, GoOdy. And his opponent to the south, the pink Zerg player, representing Vega Squadron, it's DaNa. Game 1, long. Game 2, slightly shorter. Game number 3 on Polar Night. Will it be quick? With these two, I just don't know. Game 1, of course, went to GoOdy, as DaNa was unable to break his relentless sieged up position. Game number 2, though, well, that went through to DaNa, as he did prevent expansions from GoOdy and just continually take it all down. So, not too much else going down at the moment. No scary things. Again, DaNa has opened the same way that he's chosen to so far every single map, which is going pool into hatch, and that's very unusual. And I've mentioned it every time, and that's because it is. The general rule, or the general consensus, is that you go boom, hatch first into either a gas or then a pool. And that's been done for what seems like pretty much forever, actually. GoOdy coming out with this SCV very early on, and if you remember in map 1, GoOdy actually went to go for a bunker and send these marines across. This could be just to scout out. We'll wait to see exactly what's going to be done. Overcomes this SCV now. Can they take a little peek? Oh, run straight into some Zerglings. Still gets the information though. Knows there's Zerglings out at the very least. Fourlings isn't terrifying. Just enough to deter any poking and prodding. Nice use of that barracks. Floating it up there in order to take out the Overlord. In honesty, I'm not sure if it's a worthwhile use of your first barracks. GoOdy clearly thinks it is. It does supply block DaNa, but with these fourlings coming out, it does stop marine production, all while it's floating about. SCV still waiting, fourlings ready to come up. They can actually probably get a fair bit of work done here. At least one SCV will die now. It should do anyway. Down it goes. The two marines are going to be a bit too scary, especially the third one coming through there, but getting that SCV delays the command center by a couple of fractions of a second. DaNa now droning heavily and just putting his lings back in order to take the watchtower. What's important is that Polar Night, or what's important to note for someone who maybe doesn't understand maps and things like that, is Polar Night is a relatively small map. First map, I'm trying to recall which map it was actually going down on. It was a fairly big map if I recall, which meant that there was lots of bases to take easily, and you can just sit back and defend. Map number 2, Yonsu, slightly smaller. There was less easy to take bases, specifically for GoOdy. Polar Night, probably the hardest of the 3. You should be able to fairly easily take this base, although some Terran players like Zergs opt to take one further apart. The one in the back, while it seems to make sense they'd be easy to take, Mutalisk, which DaNa used effectively, can sneak on by and come and start attacking it through. And then this base off to the very left would be very hard to hold. So GoOdy has, kind of on a good day, 4 bases, maybe 5 bases he can easily take. Whereas through GoOdy's style of play, DaNa can happily take all of the bases on his side of the map. He can even actually be greedy and potentially take this base up to the top left. It depends on how GoOdy positions his army. But either way, DaNa has easily got 5 bases. Probably 6, maybe even 7. GoOdy now floating down a barracks just to complete this wall. Has got Hellions coming through as well as the Banshee, this time with Cloak. He hasn't got that any game so far this series, although map number 1 he did start with it. Spire being hidden at the moment though by DaNa. This is a very early Spire. Mutalisk did a lot for him in map number 2. GoOdy's still looking around trying to find what else is there. We've got the 3rd CC already on its way up. GoOdy playing a very economic based play. And he's hoping he can justify this very economically based playstyle, because he's going to be very harassment heavy with all of those Hellions, just trying to poke and prod if and where he can. And that should mean, in theory, that DaNa stays back in defense. But with Roaches on the way out and Mutalisks on the way out, this isn't a scary composition to try and deal with harassment from. The Hellions are going to have to back away, and that's going to make GoOdy a tiny bit vulnerable. The Banshee's still a bit of an ace card. Cloak was cancelled yet again. So once the Mutalisks come out, that's going to get shut down. The Queen can also start chipping away at it. The important thing is that the Roaches don't die too quickly. DaNa morphing an Overseer anyway, and that's never a bad move, just in case the Banshee had Cloak. And even if it doesn't, having the Overseer is never a bad thing. In worst case scenario, you can go and scout with a slightly more mobile flying scout. You've got the Changeling, and you've also got the Contaminate, which a lot of players unfortunately don't use as frequently as perhaps they should. Overlord there gets taken out, does supply block DaNa, and DaNa, with a couple more Overlords on the way, shouldn't keep that lasting too long, but it's still a fairly bit frustrating and not something that you really want to deal with. So DaNa going for these Mutalisks yet again. 8 of them on the field. Does GoOdy have his missile turret wall up yet? No. No, he does not. And that means that he should have a fairly tough time holding this. There's 1 Viking and 4 Marines to hold off 8 Mutalisks. Good number of SCVs going down, and if you cripple a Terran's economy early on, that can cause some big problems. There is a missile turret at the natural base though, and these Mutalisks are being very bold. A Thor also now hitting the field, and that should spell the end of this Muta harassment, at least in these smaller groups. +1 air weapons coming through. Thor gets a good hit off there. A few more Spore Crawlers. 3 more Creeper Tumors spreading forward. Missile turrets should deter further Mutalisk aggression, and the Thor count is going to keep getting higher. Overall though, those Mutas managed to kill 13 workers off, or 12 after the one that was killed early on by the Lings. That ain't too bad. Gives DaNa a 66-45 worker lead, but DaNa really needs to start looking at taking a 4th and then a 5th base ASAP, knowing that GoOdy is going to sit back and play a defensive turtle strategy. Do have Burrow coming down again for DaNa, as well as a lot more Roaches hitting onto the field. GoOdy just preparing to move out now, almost certainly to secure a 3rd as opposed to put on some pressure. And that missile charge just pretty much confirms that, plus the lift up. GoOdy going to be expanding off to the right. By taking this right hand expansion, you can position tanks and stuff around here, and should be able to take the back base and only be at risk of Mutalisk harassment, as opposed to ground based attacks. So that's a good move by GoOdy. Do have a second Spire coming through now, and this is a characteristic play we've seen from DaNa every game, going for those double air upgrades. Although I am still very surprised we haven't ever seen Broodlords, because I think Broodlords are a great way to deal with mech, especially when there's a decent chunk of tanks. Because while the Vikings can be threatening, if you've got a few Infestors and a few Corruptors with your Broodlords, they're never going to get touched long term. Few additional command centers also being thrown down now. GoOdy, with this 3rd, going to be muling in heavily. 1-1 upgrades, kicking in any moment from now for DaNa. But DaNa preparing for a big split of Roaches. Coming in from all angles, the tank count is not that high at 6. Can these Roaches make up the distance? Well, in they come now. The tank's up on the high ground taking a fair bit of damage, but the Roaches getting melted. The Roaches to the south also getting taken down. And DaNa has to back out. This positioning from GoOdy is just spectacular. Specifically, I want to draw attention to this tank right in the corner. While it doesn't actually hold either ramp particularly much, all of the other tanks are secured by it, making it a very important position. Plus, it's very hard to take out there. You basically have to be on top of it to be able to do it. So, just spreading those tanks makes them exceptionally hard for Roaches to take down. Infestation Pit on its way out now for DaNa, plus 10 more Mutalisks. He's going up to 16 Mutas. They'll have +1 with +2 on its way. up against not actually too many missile turrets, so they could start looking to engage head on. And while a sensor tower has a game being constructed, it's in the center. And that means that Mutas can come flying through all of this dead space to try and find their way through. And GoOdy actually identifying his own potential weakness and starts constructing more missile turrets. Enduring Locusts coming down now from our Zerg. Going to be going for some Swarm Host play, just trying to siege through. Interesting to see this coming, considering in game number 1 it was highly ineffective in contending with GoOdy's turtle strategy. About 15-16 minutes through this game, and GoOdy's looking to take his 4th base, whereas DaNa happily sitting up on 5 bases, getting ready to take the 6th, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him try and ninja the 7th base as well. Mutas getting spotted as they come over to defend that base, or at least as they're coming over to attack, but this still alerts GoOdy to what's coming. The Mutas do need to be a bit careful. They can't fly into 3 missile turrets, but they do anyway. Take out one of them, the one in the back here, pretty vulnerable. And DaNa should be able to get some nice damage done, not actually finishing off that missile turret. We'll get a couple of kills. The Overseer soaking up the first Thor hit, always a smart move to make. Re-engaging back onto those Vikings, playing a dangerous game. But the Mutas, the majority of them, get away. I think actually all of them did. Hasn't Mutalist died? 4 have this game in total. But I think actually all of the 16 were there. DaNa setting up at 90 drones, a very high drone count at the moment. GoOdy adding in high-sec auto-tracking, increasing the range of missile turrets of course. And adding in a huge number more missile turrets. He does not want that happening again. He also takes his 4th behind his natural base in a very defensive position from ground. We do now have these swarm hosts, and they're starting to make good progress. The tanks are very split, which means that these locusts can keep on coming through. Mutas attempt to try to find somewhere through, but they get taken down fast by just the sheer volume of missile turrets and the Thors there. A push from the south has not yet been attempted, just allowing these locusts to come in at the moment. Vikings get sniped off ASAP. A hive coming down for DaNa, meanwhile GoOdy adding in more additional command centers. His Hellbats checking to the bottom, or the very right base, about the 3 o'clock position, just to see whether or not DaNa has tried to sneakily take that. A couple of SCVs gonna pay the price. And now actually some Mutalists trying to push straight through these turrets. That's a very bold move by these Mutas. They may have +2 attack, but a good number of them, I believe, went down there. There are still 16 on the field, but I find it incredibly hard to believe that none of them died. No, there's some more coming out. So they are getting reassembled. Swarm host still pressuring, still getting some nice damage through. Can they win with it though? The tanks saying no, they can't. Hellbats getting a good amount of damage done here at the 5th base, I think, of DaNa, and the Mutalists going to be forced to come back to defend that. Only 4 drones killed compared to 22 SCVs slaughtered by DaNa so far this game. Again, DaNa just seems to be struggling to try and find a way to get through, and oh no! Oh no, a swarm host didn't burrow. That of course means that it waddles off to its death. What DaNa was trying to do there was set the rally point for those locusts, but didn't quite hit it on the money. The Vikings are pretty scary. The Mutas can't really contend with them that well. And again, DaNa are going to be looking to go into those Ultralisks late game. Interestingly, doesn't have any Vipers yet. Something we've seen DaNa utilise up against this mech composition every game, apart from this one so far. More orbital commands getting produced, and what these orbitals allow GoOdy to do is to reduce his SCV count, where he'll get to a point where he only actually needs SCVs in the gases, and he's actually rapidly approaching that point. Now he's up at 6 orbital commands, soon going to be up to 8. 8 orbitals is 8 mules, which if you think that each mule is worth roughly, or at most 5 SCVs, that's a fair SCV count in itself. These tanks are able to achieve so much damage. So much splash onto all these locusts. Just shutting them all down before they even get there. Thor count is only at 3. And there are still only 12 Vikings. Honestly, I'd love to know people's comments in chat, and if you're watching on YouTube in the comment section, what do you think the Broodlords in this situation? Because to me, I think Broodlords would be just amazingly good in breaking this. Yes, there's 12 Vikings, but if you lost the supply of the Mutalisks and of the Roaches, maybe a couple of these Swarm Hosts, you could just move in and be able to defend against these Vikings. There's not enough of them, in my opinion. Still though, Mute is trying to pick off anything that comes across. A couple of SCVs suiciding to free up a few more blocks of supply. The Locusts, yet again, trying to make their way through, trying to get some more damage down if they can. Not too much, as of yet, being achieved. These Swarm Hosts making some minor repositions. Scan though from GoOdy's going to see that they're coming. A whole wall of Spore Crawlers coming through just to make sure that the Ravens can't make any progress. In a game we're getting into a bit of a stalemate situation. Yet again, unfortunately. Going to be interesting to see who's able to break this stalemate first though. Interestingly, we've got a good number of drones getting reproduced after putting down all those spores. And again, DaNa's got a huge bank, and I'm not sure 88 drones is really serving much purpose. Perhaps dropping that drone count quite substantially through building static defense and bringing in some Broodlords or something like that may actually be more beneficial. Definitely some Vipers would be good. GoOdy going with a Ninja Thor force here. Going to be attempting to take down the hatchery. Will succeed in doing that fairly easily. Meanwhile, DaNa heading straight up with a lot of Mutalisks, but the missile turrets are there and they're getting some great damage through, but this is a suicide mission. And the Mutas are going to make their way through. Unfortunately, a Thor's there, that takes a lot of beating. And while the Mutas have managed to make it around the back, these SCVs aren't a huge problem to GoOdy at this stage. He needs the gas, sure, but he's got so much banked up. He's got 3.2k. And he's still max. Armies always can remax on army supply. Plus produce 10 SCVs at a time. Wow. He's actually sitting there with 12 orbitals at the moment. The Vikings engaging head up against these Mutalisks. They're losing this fight though. What's a bit of an interesting decision is that we see it's actually GoOdy. Oh, sorry, it's actually DaNa opting to get 5 more Swarm Hosts as opposed to anything else. So he's just committing heavily to these Swarm Hosts at the moment. And it's going to be very interesting to see how that actually trades, because there's so many siege tanks that I'm not sure how the siege tanks are going to contend with just so many Swarm Hosts. There's a critical mass point where the siege tanks should, in theory, just take everything down. And exactly what that point is, well, we'll see. A couple of Corruptors coming in as well. That's going to help against the Vikings and also the Ravens, but with no Great Aspire, they can't become Broodlords. Scans still coming down, GoOdy attempting to creep forward. Remember, this is the ace game. Whoever wins this advances onto the semi-finals. More Locusts making their way through. PDDs being utilised by those Ravens just to soak up the hits. A few nice abducts of those Vikings into the Spore Crawler wall. A couple of tanks also getting pulled through, but before the Locust wave, and that means that with a scan, a couple of those Swarm Hosts do take a big hit. GoOdy playing this very tactically, as he always does. More scans coming through, yet again. Another pullback retreat. Down to the bottom right. GoOdy has yet again managed to snipe off that hatchery. Doesn't have to worry about that as of yet. And he's looking to try and take the base as his own. Both players' banks very high. Specifically DaNa's up at basically AK. whereas GoOdy's seeing a 4k, 3k minerals gas. Even when the Locusts close up the distance, the PDD's just stopping them dealing too much damage. Resources lost. DaNa, even though going for this very heavy swarm host composition, still losing nearly double the resources of GoOdy. Another tank working his way through. A few SCVs going to come in there, repair up the Thor. The Zergling's doing a bit of good work though, and so obviously this Thor will eventually die, especially since it's not focusing those lings. It's going to be close if he'll get the hatchery. They should get it now. That's a nice pick off. Couple more Locusts trying to go through. The swarm host being forced to retreat, and GoOdy making that slow, steady advance forward that he always does. Hatches getting retaken now, or at least one is getting retaken out by DaNa. Thor's getting a lot of work done, but getting quite low as those Locusts close up the distance with them. GoOdy just really sieging up every position he moves to. He's got enough money to be able to afford to do this. The PDDs as well play such a critical role in soaking up the Locust hits, so even the few that manage to sneak by, and it's actually a fair number, the PDDs just stop them doing anything. 26 swarm hosts, of course, mean 52 Locusts per spawn cycle. This is just keeping these tanks from taking any damage at all. One lone Thor, busy trying to get some work done, but the Lings trying to stop him, so a quick mule cooldown for the heal up, or the repair rather. There's 12 orbital commands, so no shortage of mules. GoOdy still creeping through. Anyone who watches Doctor Who will know that GoOdy will have heard of the sleeping angels that only move when you don't look at them. And GoOdy's tanks are kind of like that. They somehow slowly edge forward and you never actually see them move. Very sneaky. I'm desperately trying to see the mythical movement of one of GoOdy's siege tanks. Oh no, another suicidal swarm host that wanted to be a Locust. Didn't end well for him. Spines being positioned just to try and stop this Thor from demolishing stuff yet again. Of course, with the mules there, this Thor is a bit of a hero. More of an Odin. He just plows through everything. The hatchery will probably die again. And that's another nice pick off by GoOdy. Both players around max for a long time now. We're 32, nearly 33 minutes into the game. And things looking very much like a stalemate. And sent by these Locusts just to come and block the CC, but GoOdy realises they're there, and so flies off to the corner. Nice little abduct. Means one of those tanks dies. And oh my goodness, we actually just witnessed some of GoOdy's tanks moving. He's getting closer. A few Ravens get abducted into those spore crawlers, but also allows them to drop a couple of Seeker missiles. Takes more than one Seeker missile to kill us swarm hosts, unless it's splashed. In come these Locusts yet again. Both players really reducing their work account, although GoOdy's doing that intentionally. I'm not so sure DaNa is, but DaNa can afford to. DaNa's got like 8k minerals, 9k gas. More point defense drones coming through. Huge heap of abducts coming through on these Vikings. Unfortunately, the Viper's taking a brunt of the shells. The Corruptors was taking a bit of a beating. Spore Crawler is the main anti-air damage dealer there. GoOdy attempting to find a nice way to end this out. DaNa just knowing that it's a bit of a race against time, because the longer this goes on, the better it gets for GoOdy, believe it or not, because GoOdy is not really losing anything. Now, DaNa's lost about 10,000 more resources, even trading what should be free units, just from these Vipers and things going down. But the Viper control is impeccably good at the moment from DaNa. And as long as he keeps that up, he should be able to stop any of them dying. Nice blinding clouds being used, but the PDD is still soaking up a lot of the damage from those Locusts and the tanks behind. A couple of tanks did fall though. And this is just such a positionally focused match at the moment. that everything these two do is all about the strategic, the better angles, and things are pretty crazy. Awesome comment from my Twitch chat, by the way, in the 2-minute delay about the sleeping angels and GoOdy's tanks. They should be called GoOdy's angels. I agree with that. Couple more nice takedowns there as the Locusts continue pressing forward. Seeker missiles now could actually get some big explosions down. Down a few swarm hosts die. And this is what I mean, the longer it goes on, DaNa not really able to break this yet. And every time these Seeker missiles manage to hit the mark, a few more swarm hosts die. No one didn't know. Takes more than one Seeker missile to kill swarm hosts. DaNa's also lost these two little fringe expansions. GoOdy has taken the bottom right one as his own, slowly occupying some of the creep infested land. I feel like I should give all of these different like swarm hosts and tanks names. Look at the kill count on these tanks. This tank right here, 94 kills. 63, 106, 109, 115, 114. Have we got any 115? Can we beat that? 100. Oh, matched it. 115. Oh, he's up to 117 now. Okay, so this is the hero tank. 118 kills on him there. This may be the game we find out whether the kill counter can go into the thousands. Seeker missiles hitting again, mainly on the Locust though. The tank splitting quite nicely. Good abduct. Going to allow another tank to fall. Both players' banks still fairly sizable, but DaNa seems to be depreciating a bit quicker than that of GoOdy's. I dread to think what the ammunition bill for the Terran army is. I don't know how they fund it, to be honest. Those war bonds must be huge. Vikings engaging up against these Corruptors now, trying to hide them backwards a bit into the PDDs, so the PDDs will soak up some of the Corruptor shots. In come the Raven battle fleets from the side. They're ready for the Seeker missiles, and the mass Seeker missiles coming down. This could be a big moment. A lot of damage is going to get done. Vipers in the air get taken out. A lot of swarm hosts die. 20 swarm hosts still remaining though on the field. Battling up against 22 tanks though. So, we're approaching the 40-minute mark. This is comparable to game number 1. Still, the Vikings get some nice damage down. I feel as this slow push continues, it's a good time to remind anyone watching on YouTube that in the video description there is a donate button there for either a single or monthly payment. And on Twitch, underneath my channel information, you can also donate to make awesome esports like this continue to happen. This casting, I mean the throat lozenges alone in maps like this. Because your voice dies solo casting this. So consider that it's a throat lozenger fund. Still, these swarm hosts continue on. A couple going for the flank. Okay, this is a new development now. The flanking swarm hosts. Another swarm host that thought he was a locust. Maybe just couldn't take it anymore. Maybe actually swarm hosts don't produce limitless waves of locusts. Eventually they unburrow and run themselves. Still we see those Vikings diligently guarding against any blinding clouds, any Viper advances. There's 6 Vipers on the field and we're actually back up to 29 swarm hosts now. GoOdy though with his bottom right base is increasing his bank, whereas DaNa's is all but halved, nearly actually gone to a third of its original volume. That causes some problems. DaNa still trying to find a way to break this. GoOdy has made good progress. I think he may be going for another big play though. Drops down a couple of blinding clouds, but Seeker missiles engaging yet again. The Vikings being brave. Got to be careful of those spore crawlers, but still, this is very, very tense. Couple of Seeker missile hits. 2 spore hosts go down there. Reinforcing tanks moving forward now. Those tanks are making a bold play. Not even sieging up. They're just like, YOLO. Then realizing the error of their way, they're going to move back and siege up on the ramp. Corruptors moving forward, but the Vikings making good progress. Able to take out a lot of those Corruptors. And DaNa just leaves the game there. Realizes that it can be no more. And it's all over. In the space of 15 minutes, GoOdy got... I just want to point this out. In the space of 15 minutes, GoOdy got from here to here. It would have taken a couple of hours for him to end up over here. So, DaNa doing us all a nice little favour there. Worth also noting that if we take a look at the units killed, 44 Corruptors, 33 Swarm Hosts, 60 SCVs, 20 Vipers. Overall, units lost. Even with a Swarm Host composition, DaNa was just losing so much more than GoOdy. GoOdy's mech is just relentless. So there we go, GoOdy advances forward into the semi-finals.